Hello little dreamers and welcome to Storytime with Vicky. Tonight we're going back to the hidden garden for another bedtime adventure with Peter Rabbit and his woodland friends. So snuggle up, get cozy and let's begin. Peter Rabbit and the Moonlit Map. On a soft and sleepy evening when the sky was turning lavender and the first stars were beginning to twinkle, Peter Rabbit hopped quietly through the hidden garden. The flowers were softly closing their petals for the night, and the tall grasses swayed in the cool evening breeze. Peter's little blue jacket fluttered as he tiptoed between the moonlit daisies. "Oh," Peter whispered with a smile, "the garden always feels so magical at bedtime." Not far away, Hazel the squirrel was scampering along the garden wall, her bright reddish-orange tail bouncing behind her. "Peter," she chirped excitedly, "come and see! I found a shiny pebble that sparkles in the moonlight." Peter hurried over, and Bramble the hedgehog waddled after them, happy and cheerful as ever. "Well," said Bramble softly, "if Hazel found it, must be very special indeed." Hazel grinned proudly. But just as Peter bent down to look, something else caught his eye. Tucked beneath a smooth round stone, hidden between the roots of a prickly rose bush, was a tiny rolled up piece of paper, tied with silver grass. Peter blinked. "Oh," he said, "what's this?" Hazel gasped. "Oh, a secret!" Bramble leaned closer. "A bedtime secret," he whispered. Peter carefully untied the silver grass ribbon and slowly unrolled the paper. It was a tiny map, and as the moonlight touched it, it began to glow. Hazel's eyes grew wide. "It's shining!" Bramble's little nose twitched. "It's a moonlit map," he said in awe. The map shivered with silvery lines that curved through the woodland paths. At the very top was a drawing of the hidden garden, and further along the path, drawn beside a cluster of tall, majestic trees, was a glowing picture of something very curious indeed. A great old tree with little lanterns hanging from every branch. Peter read the tiny words written underneath. "The Sleepy Hollow Lantern Tree." Hazel nearly tumbled over with excitement. "A lantern tree? A real lantern tree?" Peter smiled, but his voice stayed steady and calm. "Maybe it needs our help." Bramble nodded thoughtfully. "If a moonlit map has appeared at bedtime," he said, "then it must be something very important." Just then from the winding garden path came the soft and steady shuffle of familiar feet. It was Mr. Tumbleweed. The kind old tortoise wore his round glasses, and his shell gleamed in the moonlight. "Well, well," he said with a warm smile, "what bedtime mystery have we found tonight?" Peter carefully held up the glowing map. Mr. Tumbleweed adjusted his glasses and looked closely. "Oh my," he said, "I haven't seen one of these in many, many years." "You know what it is?" asked Peter. Mr. Tumbleweed nodded. "The Sleepy Hollow Lantern Tree helps woodland creatures find their way home at bedtime. When its lanterns glow, the forest feels calm and safe." Hazel's ears perked up. "Then why would it send us a map?" Mr. Tumbleweed looked up at the sky where the moon was rising higher. "If it sent a map tonight," he said thoughtfully, "perhaps some of its lanterns have gone dim." Peter stood a little taller. "Then we should go and help." Hazel beamed. "Yes." Bramble smiled. "Very exciting adventure," he said. And so, with the moon above them and the glowing map in Peter's paws, the four friends set off down the silver woodland path. The forest at bedtime was quiet and peaceful. Owls hooted faintly in the distance. Tiny fireflies blinked between the ferns like little floating stars. The map glowed bright each time they came to a turning. "This way," Peter whispered. Hazel scampered ahead, then paused. "Wait!" Nestled beside a fallen log, 3 baby mice were huddled close together. They looked worried. "We can't find the path home," squeaked the smallest mouse. Peter knelt gently beside them. "Don't worry," he said. "We're on our way to relight the lantern tree. Come with us and we'll help you home." The baby mice's faces brightened at once. So now there were 7 little travellers on the moonlit path. A little further along, they crossed a bubbling brook over a mossy stone bridge. Hazel pointed up. "Look!" Above them, hanging low on a branch, was a tiny lantern, round and golden, but no longer glowing. Peter gently reached up and lifted it down. "It must belong to the lantern tree," he said. Bramble noticed something sparkling in the grass. "Here's another!" And then another tucked beside a fern, and another near the roots of an oak tree. The friends carefully gathered the sleeping lanterns one by one. "It's like the forest has been waiting for us to find them," Peter said quietly. At last the map began to shine brighter than ever, and through a curtain of willow branches they stepped into a quiet little hollow. And there, in the middle of the clearing, stood the most beautiful tree they had ever seen, the Sleepy Hollow lantern tree. Its branches were wide and curved like gentle arms. Tiny golden lanterns hung from every bough. Some still glowed softly, but many had gone dark. Hazel looked up in wonder. "It's so beautiful." Peter stepped closer. "It just needs a little help from friends." Mr. Tumbleweed smiled. "Best sort of magic." Together the friends carefully hung each lantern back where it belonged. Peter reached the lower branches. Hazel scampered high and tied silver grass ribbons around the smaller twigs. Bramble carried the tiniest lanterns in his careful little paws. And Mr. Tumbleweed, steady and wise, showed them where each one should go. When the very last lantern was placed, the tree stood still and quiet. The clearing suddenly hushed. The wind slowed down. The moonlight pulled silver on the grass. And then, twinkle! One lantern lit up, then another, and another, and another. Soon the whole lantern tree shimmered with warm golden light. Soft glowing lanterns sparkled from every branch, lighting the hollow like a magical bedtime star. The baby mice gasped happily. "It's glowing again!" And all across the woodland, little paths began to shine. Golden dots of light appeared along the trails, through the ferns, across the brook, and beneath the trees. Peter smiled. "It's showing everyone the way home." From all around the forest, tiny creatures began to peek out. A pair of rabbits, their ears twitching, a family of voles huddled worriedly together, and a little owl with fluffy feathers. Each one looked up at the glowing tree, then followed the warm lantern light towards home. Hazel snuggled her green scarf close. "This is the loveliest adventure ever." Bramble sighed happily. "Feels like the whole forest is saying goodnight." Mr. Tumbleweed looked at Peter. "Sometimes," he said, "the brightest lights are the ones we light together." Peter gazed up the glowing branches. The lanterns swayed softly like stars rocking gently in the night sky. Then from one of the lowest branches, a very tiny lantern drifted loose and floated down and straight into Peter's paws. It was the smallest lantern of all golden and so warm. On it, in tiny silver letters, were the words, "For kind hearts." Peter smiled. "This one belongs to all of us." Peter, Hazel, Bramble and Mr. Tumbleweed walked the baby mice safely home. They crossed the brook, they passed the willow branches, and at last they returned to the hidden garden, where the flowers were sleeping and the moon daisies glimmered pale in the night. The tiny lantern glowed beside them like a little moon. They placed it at the edge of the hidden garden path, where it glowed softly to welcome anyone who might need help finding their way. Hazel yawned. "A big adventure makes me very sleepy." Bramble gave a tiny hedgehog stretch. I think he said. I should dream of glowing trees. Mr. Tumbleweed chuckled softly. A wonderful idea. Peter looked up the stars. The forest was calm, the paths were glowing, and somewhere in the distance the Sleepy Hollow lantern tree twinkled gently through the night. Peter smiled his softest smiles. "Good night, little lanterns," he whispered. And as the moon shone over the hidden garden, the woodland creatures followed the golden lights home, one by one, until the whole forest was quiet. All creatures snuggled cosily and fast asleep. Thank you for joining me for tonight's bedtime adventure on Storytime with Vicky. If you enjoyed this bedtime story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back soon for another magical tale. Good night, little dreamers, and sweet dreams.